Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne here. How are you? Okay, we got a little reverb we're working on here. I think that's gone now. He's up off Colchester Avenue with his family, and his dad is a buddy of mine too, and is also city councilor. So, Sam, you came on very short notice. Now, I'll explain. I have a friend that comes on quite a bit, but he has been asked to go down to Pennsylvania, and he's got trick-or-treaters coming to his house, and he's got a pack. So I want to wish my great friend Owen Doherty the best down in Pennsylvania. There'll be thousands of organizers going down there. Sam, is this your first time on Town Meeting TV?
This is my first time on Town Meeting TV, though I've watched many of their programs. I watched their coverage of the City Council. I think it's phenomenal, but it's great to be live here with you, Andrew, and I think this is going to be fun.
I appreciate it. You know, I got into politics when I was in high school too. I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, and the capital was just a few miles away. And so when I was Sam's age, maybe just a touch older, I had a internship, and all internships back then were unpaid. Every one of them. They'd volunteer you to death. And sorry, it's like backwards here, trying to fix my tie. And through that, I turned 17, and Senator Ted Kennedy was running for the Democratic nomination for president against Jimmy Carter. And I ended up meeting up with these kids, college students from Wesleyan and Brown and Trinity. And I went to 5 states campaigning, and I also got to go to the convention. So I remember, this is kind of heavy, Sam, I remember being the youngest guy, and now I'm one of the oldest. I went to my first political rally with my dad when I was 11 years old. Bless his soul. He really cared. And your dad really cares. So I'm thinking that you probably got into campaigning and stuff, helping the old man.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, so I mean, when Jack Hansen resigned for the East District.
Ward 1, just to help everybody out.
Which is Wards 1 and Ward 8.
Oh, super ward.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Ward 1 and Ward 8.
Okay.
When Jack Hansen resigned, there was a bit of an opening, and Maya Brandt ran as a Democrat, and she won. She covered some space, but
it wasn't for her. She just kind of she was a good soldier, but she had some stuff, so the seat became open.
The seat was open, and I cared a lot about city politics then, and I still do.
Of course.
So I convinced my dad to run for city council, and he did, and we ran a great race, and that's really sort of how I got involved in Burlington city politics and politics in general.
Right. Now, we got to say hello to our friend Adam Roof, who is your dad's campaign manager. He's now the executive director of the Massachusetts Democrats, and that's a big job, Sam.
It is certainly a big job, and you know Adam Roof, he's a great guy. He led the Burlington Democrats.
Friend of your whole family.
A friend of my whole family's. He taught me so much about what I know about campaigning.
Now, Adam's future is unlimited. That's one of the top executive director jobs. You know, he's working with people like Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey and Governor Healy. Now, for people who, just casually tuning in, it's I'll tell you where the campaigning is tough is Town Meeting Day, because it's the first Tuesday in March. It can't be on the 1st, though. Is that correct, Tim? I mean, not Tim, Sam.
I'm unaware of that, but
it cannot be on the 1st, but it's the first Tuesday. So my point is that you campaign January and February, and the last time I looked at an atlas or the weather, God knows what kind of weather it is. It could be a blizzard. It could be 10, 12, 14 degrees below zero.
Yeah. That's
dark.
It gets dark quick, and that's it.
Daylight savings changes.
Yep, but it's still really dark when you're out there after work, knocking doors, after school, knocking doors. I ran Jeff Hand's campaign for city council here in Ward 1 last Town Meeting Day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
that's after your dad's.
That was after my dad's. That was the year after.
Let's go back to your dad. Tim, his dad, is a lawyer and a really sharp guy, but I don't believe had run for a significant office like council before. So he was learning, and you're learning on a fly. You've basically had a couple city councilors just in a few months, and you're knocking on doors, your son's helping you. I remember putting up signs with Adam in the Jeep, and basically kind of a sprint till town meeting day, right? Talk about what you do. It's just hitting the doors, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are really tight races. I mean, they can be decided by a handful of votes. So every vote matters, and getting every person to vote for the candidate you're supporting is really important. And a lot of that is really just having your candidate go out and knock on doors. That is super big. I think people really value that, especially in Burlington, having face-to-face time with their candidate.
That's a good point. Another thing, now people laugh, but I'm an old school guy, and you are kind of at heart, I think, too. We love our signs.
I'm a huge sign guy, and a huge challenge, as you mentioned, with the cold weather is that the ground is frozen, and you got to drill deep.
Tell them what you have to, so you have to take like a drill.
You get a drill with a super long drill bit, and you got to drill into the ground, and you got to put your sign into the ground, and it's a huge challenge, especially around Ward 1.
Right. And the thing is, I remember an old-time Vermonter said to me once, he said, I saw a lot of signs. So what he's saying is somebody cared. Somebody thought Tim was a good guy and said, yeah, you can put a sign in my yard. Or somebody went out on a cold night and put some signs up. There's common areas where you can put out signs. And also with town meeting, every 3 years, that would be with a mayor's race. So that can be good or bad. If you're on the mayor's side, if the mayor's popular, things are great. If there's controversy, if someone's had multi-terms, then there's different feelings. So you kind of got to run with the Democrats, Sam, but you always got to run as your own person. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you know, it's balancing that, and that was definitely a challenge this cycle for the Democrats, right? We had our mayoral race, and we wanted to support our mayoral candidate, which we did, but we also wanted our councilors to have their own individual opinions and ideas and run sort of separate from our mayorship.
Right. Now, that's a tough one. Now, in fairness to Moreau and Joan, Moreau was mayor for 12 years, and to go with the same party for another 3, that would be 15 years in the same party. And, you know, Sam and I are diehard Democrats, but the Progressive Party, it's the biggest third party in America. And even though we disagree with them on some issues, I would like to say this. I think Mayor Emma is doing a good job, and I'm proud of her, and I'm rooting for her. And I like the people she has working with her. You know, full disclosure, Moreau is a great friend of mine. We were at the convention together in Chicago. I swore him in for a second term. Joan, wonderful person. Her family, her husband, I went to the same college with him. Her daughter's at Columbia School of Journalism, Julia Shannon Grillo, who will...
BHS graduate.
You know it. And Tufts graduate, and also will... I don't know when, soon, will be governor of Vermont. I mean, that's how good she is. And Joan cares. And, you know, the city is going through some changes. For example, I live in the student area. We're facing challenges always with, you know, landlords that kind of don't keep up with their properties, or kids that are just there for a year and there's not the love. We're also dealing downtown with some serious narcotic problems. Sam, I hate to say it, you know, you're a young guy, but you see that stuff walking to school, don't you?
I do. I've been seeing it for a couple of years now, and especially with BHS being downtown, it's a big issue, you know. It is not fair for kids to see that stuff when they walk to school. They should not be able to have to see open air drug markets or people doing
sales
drugs.
Too.
Sales, yeah.
I thought this was all felony, this stuff, and yeah, you know, it's really depressing because over by Memorial Auditorium and the old Y, it's really dilapidated. And I want to thank my friends at the library who are such great people and you know, inundated with a lot of problems. Now, when I was a kid, you couldn't drink beer on the street. I don't know about Sam. I don't think you're not of age, but I don't see that something that. Those little things like you're not supposed to smoke on Church Street. You're not supposed to ride your bike on Church Street. You're not supposed to camp on Church Street. You know, a little civility goes a long way. Unfortunately, these narcotic substances, which thank God I never tried, are so addicting and so evil and cut with so much terrible stuff. Some of it is actually horse tranquilizer. So I forgot my COVID rap, Sam. You don't mind. We're going to segue into a little social services, okay?
Of course.
Let's say you got some drug problems. Let's say you got a drinking problem. Let's say COVID got you down. You're depressed. You maybe don't have a safe place to stay. Money's tight. Food's tight. The heat's not on. You can call. The state has a state number called 211, okay, and you can call for those social services. For example, Medicaid is insurance that is open to low-income or even no-income Vermonters. In a society, it's so much easier for people to be insured because they're healthier. And healthcare is a right, Sam.
I agree. I 100% agree. Healthcare is a right.
And you can thank Governor Dean because he has this program for young kids called Dr. Dinosaur. And I want to give a shout out to him. I think he watches this show. So, for example, COVID, I just got my 6th shot. How you doing on your shots?
I just got my shot the other day.
I had no side effects.
No side effects for me either.
Right. You know, if you're in a school or in a church or I work in the music business or I'm constantly talking to people, a COVID shot is a must. I just want to reach out to my producers. They just showed me 15 minutes. Can we add 5 minutes onto that, Kevin? Okay. I'd like to thank we're doing so much stuff and we haven't, I want you to talk about this summer. How did you, I think a lot of people are really interested in working with someone like Becca or Senator Welch or Mike Pichek or Sarah Copeland-Hanzis. What's the best way to get involved? And I think it's probably starts at the volunteer stage, but okay, what can people do? A young person who might be watching this.
Well, obviously you can volunteer, but I can talk a little bit about the program I did, which was the Becca Ballant Organizing Corps, run by the wonderful Natalie Silver, who is her campaign manager. I know you know Natalie.
Oh, delegate in Chicago. Wonderful person. Family's been involved in politics in Bennington and Burlington and now in Waitsfield. Nat Silver, that campaign with Miss Ballant, they put on a clinic. Hannah King,
yep.
Peter Tremblay.
Yep.
Who else am I missing? Let's throw a couple names out there. Nat Silver herself. And then, on Senator Welch's side, Ryan McLaren, Thea Wurzburg. Those wonderful people.
Well, I think when Becca was elected, they wanted her campaign to train sort of the next generation of organizers and campaign workers, and they're doing that through the Becca Ballant Organizing Corps. This was the 2nd year that it was run, and it's a fully paid, basically summer internship with a group of other young Vermonters, and we basically get together and we learn about how to campaign, how to organize, how to fundraise, the steps of recruiting a candidate and training your candidate. And in that way, we're really learning about how to campaign. And it was an incredible opportunity. I believe.
You traveled, Sam, because I saw you. We traveled the state. Now, people laugh, but we had so much fun. I only marched in like 6 parades, but you probably more than that for you, like 8 or 10, something like that, bud?
Probably something like that.
I remember up in Lindenville with my friends. I remember Brandon. And, the parades, a lot of it is showing. For example, we marched with our friend Mike Pichek, who's the state treasurer, who's a great guy. Got married this summer. He and his campaign manager, Peter Tremblay, they're very, very kind people. He's an excellent state treasurer, following in the footsteps of Beth Pierce. And so it's fun to march with him. You hold the banner. You were marching with Becca, and a lot of people in Burlington were supporting Thomas Ritter. Excuse me, my mic here. And before we finish up, because we're close, about 15 minutes, talk a little bit. So you're working with Becca. and you meet. Talk about Thomas Renner a little bit. He's a good guy.
Yeah, well, yes, I was working for Becca, but on the side, I was also working as Thomas Renner's communications director for his run for lieutenant governor.
So getting the message out.
For getting the message out, and a lot of that was, working on digital media, digital ads, press releases, speeches, stuff like that. Stuff that I think I'm pretty confident in, and it was an incredible experience to have that level of work on a statewide campaign.
You're working on a lieutenant governor, and Thomas is a city councilor in Winooski. He also works on Veterans Affairs for Becca Ballant. My friend, so this is as local a show as we get. Give me a shout out of a teacher that really helped you with your communication skills at BHS or your English skills. I'd really like to thank them because you really did a good job. It was staying on message, being creative, crafting messages, all 14 counties. So let's do a shout out to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to shout out Miss Bowen. She was my civics teacher in 9th grade.
All right.
Yeah, she also runs the student government program at BHS on her own time, right? And she takes a lot of time out of her life to do that, and I'm proud to say I'm a part of that. I was just reelected as my junior class student representative.
Awesome.
I'm really happy about that. But Miss Bowen has taught me so much, and yeah, she's a really wonderful person and teacher.
Also I like to thank out, I work in music shows and security stuff sometimes, our old buddy Troy Austin, who's this BHS security officer. He's a very, very kind guy. That's not an easy job. Safety first. Troy also does his Christmas toy drive, and that's Troy Austin. I want to thank him. He's one of the good people. He cares. There are so many great people at BHS. Yeah, I ran into you the other day at the market, and you were with your friends, and it looked like everyone had a good day at school.
Yeah,
had some laughs, learned.
Yeah, look, it's a challenge going to school in a mall. I won't deny that. Right, I will spend my entire high school career in the mall, and
Isn't that crazy?
I will never get to see the new high school. But in reality, once you spend a couple of days in there, a week in there, it is really just like normal high school, right? The teachers are all the same, and that's what makes BHS great, right? We have an incredible staff of teachers helping the students every day to learn and reach their best potential.
And I think it used to be, now this might be a slight exaggeration, so I think 64 languages were spoken by the students at BHS. It's something like that.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. I'm
Wow.
not sure of the exact number, but it's really high, right? Aside from Winooski, we are the most diverse school district in the state of Vermont.
Right. Now, what's funny, Sam? We're on the corner here of Archibald and North Winooski. And this is the heart of the old North End, okay? And if you go a couple blocks away, that is considered the poorest part of Vermont. And you see what's kind of crazy about Burlington? I came here to go to college, but you grew up here. The mix of like rich and poor, university. I rode my bike here, the man out collecting cans, or people waiting outside the food shelf really, do not have that food sufficiency. And again, the 211 is that number. There are a lot of social services. And sometimes I think of someone like Bobby Kennedy or Jesse Jackson or like Elizabeth Warren. They seem to talk about the poorest of poor. And I wish that was brought up a little bit more. I got to be honest. Do you imagine having to stay outside tonight, not have any money or anything to eat, or a place to go to the bathroom or take a shower, a light? And I mean, when I was a kid, now you'll remember, it's changed a little bit. I knew a guy, I don't want to say his name, and I believe he was a Vietnam vet. He slept outside for 20 years, Sam. They sleep in those woods by your house for your whole life. Yeah. And you see that there are different districts. Sam lives up by UVM. I live by downtown. The South End is residential. The New North End is residential. The Old North End is your classic, old buildings, a lot of new Americans. And sometimes, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. I worry about our city sometimes. I'm a big supporter of the police. Now, what do you think? I know that might not be fashionable, but I think they do a great job. And I would just like to thank also all the paramedics, all the firefighters, anybody who's out there on a snowy night fixing the wires on the lines. One thing you realize when you work a little bit in city government is it's so hands-on. I mean, your dad gets calls about like a sidewalk not being shoveled.
Yeah, it's incredibly hands-on, and it's the city's job to focus on the nitty-gritty governance and making sure our city is run well. And I think to focus on those bigger issues, right? You talked about the homelessness crisis, right, that we have in Burlington, right? The drug crisis.
You saw it every day.
I see it every day when I'm
walking to school.
The drug crisis we have in Burlington. We need support from the state and from the federal government, right? This is not only
this is a public health emergency.
This is not only Burlington's burden to bear.
Right. Now, okay, I'm going to say this, and I don't know if Sam agrees, but this is an opinion-driven show. I'm very disappointed in the governor. He's going to cruise to re-election, but he seemed to turn his back on Burlington, and I almost feel like he's running against Burlington. Governor Scott, more people are dying than are being born. Our smart young people are leaving. For example, Sam, you might choose to go to college out of state. You might choose to work in Washington, D.C. And the areas like, for example, in the Northeast Kingdom, I always say from Johnson to Newport, that's about 60 miles. Mm-hmm. It's so economically depressed. And I just feel that he has a mandate, and we're not even at 100% broadband. He's been governor for 8 years. Okay, Governor Shumlin tried, I'll tell you that, my great friend. But it's hard to, you dig 2 inches down, what do you hit? Rock, right? There's frost sometimes till June up in the kingdom. What do we do? Our population's getting smaller, our schools are getting smaller. We kind of need an economic New Deal. This bucolic vision of Vermont of maple syrup and the Von Trapps and fish and Burlington, it's wonderful. I adore all those, but I worry about the working people. And my dad told me when I was a kid, I think I asked him, Dad, why are we Democrats? And he said, I think he said this, because the Democrats are for the people. So talk to me about, like, you and your dad. You guys rap politics? You talk stuff? Or?
Well, that is certainly a big topic of conversation on
right, and your mom?
We take our dog for a walk every night, and we usually talk about what's going on in the city, and I really value that relationship I have with him. And we talk about other stuff too.
Sure.
But, I go with him to the NPA meetings, our Ward 1 and Ward 8 NPA meetings. And that is a great way for
That's
me
the Neighborhood Planning Association.
Yes, Neighborhood Planning Association, which was instituted by Mayor Sanders back in the 80s. Right. And that's a great way
excellent mayor.
That's a great way to learn about what's going on in the city and what's going on in your neighborhood.
We should do, hey, we're on a Old North End television show. We're just two people that care. But I guess we need to do some endorsements. I mean, and maybe we can put some pictures up because Kevin, he's a man. How about Senator Sanders? Wow, what an amazing senator. Enthusiastically voting for him. There he is. Also, Congresswoman Becca Balint. Excellent first term. And Sam, a lot of Congress people left. She's going to go right up in seniority.
Yeah. Congresswoman Becca Balint has been fighting for Vermonters for many decades, right?
She was a teacher.
She was a public school teacher, which of course I value as a student, right? She was in the state senate for many years as becoming Senate pro tempore.
Who basically runs
the Senate, right? And now, of course, she's serving as the first woman and first LGBTQ member of Congress for Vermont, and she's doing a great job. And if I could vote, I would be enthusiastically supporting her. I would also like to give a shout out to Abby Duke.
Oh, of course.
Abby Duke is running.
Give me a minute on that. Okay, let's do it. I want to talk about Abby for a little bit.
And
tell her where Abby Duke is a state rep who's our friend. Thank you. and she's running. She was appointed by Governor Scott because the mayor resigned to become mayor, and Abby started Sugar Snaps, and I think
Catering
she's a
business.
Yeah,
Sugar Snap Catering.
she's employed hundreds of people, including so many new Americans. She's a very kind person. She and her family. Talk to a little about Abby. What area, where that is?
So she is running in Chittenden 17, which
Okay.
is sort of the bottom half of the New North End and the sort of the western portion of the Old North End.
Right.
And
the avenue, basically, right?
The avenue, yeah. And I've known Abby for years, right? Her two daughters go to BHS, right? They're family friends.
Good family, man.
Good. And she is probably one of the most compassionate, understanding people I know. I have done a lot of volunteering for her race, knocking doors and talking to people, and so many people are supporting Abby, right? She is kind and she is sensible, and she's also extremely pragmatic, and I 100% support her. And if I was in her district and I could vote, I would totally be supporting her.
And you'll be up there helping her on election day.
Of course, that I'm planning to take the day off from school, right? My parents are giving,
Is that okay?
Giving me permission, and
Okay.
I will be standing outside the polls for Abby.
That shows something. Now, okay, we're not going to endorse all the way through because, you know, we didn't prep this, so he and I might have different opinions, but we definitely like to endorse Sarah Copeland-Hansis, our wonderful Secretary of State. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your kindness to me and everybody.
Mike Pichak, I'd love to endorse Mike Pichak. You know, he's organized a huge bus tour to Pennsylvania this weekend that I'm a part of, and I'm going down to Pennsylvania with him and 40 other volunteers to knock doors for Vice President Kamala Harris as we close out this election. You said Charity Clark
is our wonderful Attorney General. Now we have 3 minutes, so I will get in trouble with my producer if I don't mention, you know, Town Meeting TV is the place to tune in for all this stuff. Town Meeting TV. Now, for example, we're doing an opinionated-driven show. That will be the facts. Town Meeting TV wins awards. I'd like to thank my the amazing crew today: Jordan, Kevin, Stephen, and Sam. I had so much fun with you. We have 2 minutes left, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shake your hand, and I'm going to let you take the last two, and take them out, man.
Well, you know, look, we are just a few days. I think it's 5 days until Election Day, and I would just like to say to everyone out there, you know, please vote, right? It's an incredibly important election that's coming up, right? The impacts of this election will affect not only everyone, but especially my generation, right? It is my generation that will have to deal with the effects of a second Trump presidency. It'll have to deal with the effects of his opinions on climate change, right? Women's rights. Those are two incredibly important issues. And, right, if you are out there and you care about this election, it is incredibly important that you not only vote, but you also get out there and make some calls, right? You make some calls for Vice President Harris. You know, this is something I learned from Congresswoman Becca Balint, right? She talks about this a lot, right? This is not the time to sit back, right? This is the time to step out of your comfort zone and volunteer, right? If you're able to, give money if you're able to, right? This is the final sprint. This is the final get out of the vote.
You got 1 minute, brother.